It's a hard thing to look in the mirror and go, you know what, I'm not the person I want to be. I was never like happy with myself inside. The first three things that I figured out that I needed, and like a lot of people lack, is gratitude, forgiveness, and empathy. Once I got those dialed in for myself, it helped me just start achieving like a better mindset, a better person, and I just felt better about myself. And the hardest one was forgiving, because I held a big grudge against my father, against myself for, stupid mistakes that I made. I held a grudge pretty much to anybody.
Today's guest is Ernest Wood, a father, grandfather, husband, and U.S. Navy veteran. After years of not liking the man he was looking at in the mirror, he decided he needed to change. Authored Our Souls to Awesome, Journey to Joy and Happiness, now a coach to high achievers to assist them to master your life with balance. Welcome, Ernest.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Well, wow. After reading that out, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
The most courageous thing, I think I have two of them. And they've both been kind of looking at myself and knowing that I needed a change. The first one was when I joined the Navy. I got in a little bit of trouble, and the same week that I found out that I was having a child, I was going to be a father. So I had to figure out something to get myself out of the small town that I was in the direction that I was headed. So joined the Navy, and that was like the first courageous thing. And then the second one was writing that book and then actually publishing it, because when I got it done, I was nervous what people were going to say. I didn't want anybody to be like, "Oh man, that guy's a jerk," blah 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 blah. But I've had good feedback on it. So it took a little bit of courage for me to actually go ahead and put it out there.
Wow. So yeah, let's just go back and like going into the Navy. What was that like? Tell me about that time. Big decisions then. So you made a decision to go there to get you what you kind of referred to. You wasn't headed in a great place.
Yeah, I got into, like, my mindset was bad. So I didn't have any gratitude in the world. I felt everything was owed to me. And I was working out at a couple stores, and I started stealing stuff from the stores that I worked at.
Mm-hmm.
I never stole anything from like some place that I didn't work, but not that that makes any difference. But I stole some stuff. I got caught, and I was like, I have to change. I have to go do something. I cannot have my child being raised by a dad who's, a piece of crap, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and took the test, and I scored really well, and I got into the naval nuclear power program, which at the time was rated like the third most stressful
Wow.
school in the nation. It was like right behind MIT and one of the other Ivy League schools. Made it through, and then I ended up being on a submarine for 4 or 5 years before I tore up a shoulder, and the Navy gave me the old boot, honorably, fortunately.
So what was it that actually made you change your ways? What was the pivotal moment that made you actually realize you cannot, your words, not mine, carry on being an asshole?
After the Navy, I still had a pretty crappy attitude about life. Like I said, was not grateful for anything. The way I was kind of raised or grew up, I struggled through some things. Like, I lived with my father for a little while, and during that time, my brother and I actually had to go beg money for food. And so I figured anything that I could get, I was owed. And And then just a bunch of negative things kept piling up on my back. And I was never like happy with myself inside. I was happy, my sons were great. My children, I loved coaching them, doing all kinds of things, but I was a pretty big jerk even doing that. And a couple little things, I'll give you two stories. The one is my road rage incident that clicked it into high gear to making me want to change.
Mhm.
I was driving down the road listening to Brian Tracy, and he was talking about, not giving your emotions away to anybody else. At that time, I see a car coming on the road, and I know he's going to pull in front of me. I could just tell. He pulls in front of me. He cuts me off. I, do all the appropriate things. I get so close, I flip him off. I yell at him. He flips me off. He brake checks me. We start driving down the road like 100 miles an hour. We're cutting off everybody, cutting off all kinds of people so I can prove that this guy shouldn't have cut me off. I finally get next to him and I look back, and in his back seat, he has a little kid in the back of his
Oh
car.
gosh.
And I'm like, holy crap, this is crazy. Like, I've been there and done that same stupid thing. Like, we're putting other people in danger for something that's just stupid, right? So after that, that was kind of my switching moment that I had to change.
Mhm.
And I was working on it, working on it. And then one time at work, I had this gentleman tell me, hey, you're just like this other gentleman who nobody wanted to be like. All that guy did was complain, use the F word. There was never anything good coming out of that guy's mouth. And when he said that, that was the like the fine line, the falling off the edge that I knew I had to be a different person. And then I went on, I started reading every book possible, getting on some coaching courses. And that's when I decided to write my book along my little journey.
That's excellent. Because, like, I know you were saying it's cost you your friends, your loved ones. Tell me more about that time in your life then.
I was always known like I have a ton of friends. I was
Mm.
always the funny guy, but I was the funny guy that used everything bad for my funniness. Like I was racist, sexist. I did not care like who I offended. And the more shock value that I could add was the better for me at that time. Like I said, I just did not like it was fun. Like there was definitely fun times, but like the overall joy or happiness inside was not there because I always felt like I just was being almost fake to myself.
Tell me about your book and your journey of actually writing it. And at this stage, you must have been developing into the person that you want to be then.
Yeah, so I started the book probably 5.5 years ago, and I just finished it maybe 7 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time because I would start down one direction and then I would go to a different direction, and then the old asshole would pop back up, and then I would just stop doing it. And I finally, like with the technology of AI, it helped me get more of an outline. So I was able to use AI, prompt it, and it set up an outline, and then I would write. And then if I got stuck, I would say, hey, how would like a jerk write this part? And then it would spit out something. And I would go, oh, you know what? That's pretty close. So then I would like finish and be able to. So it's much easier not writing with like a blank piece of paper, right? You have a place to start, nowhere to head. And the first three things that I figured out that I needed, and like a lot of people lack, is gratitude, forgiveness, and empathy. Once I got those dialed in for myself, it helped me just start achieving like a better mindset, a better person, and I just felt better about myself. And the hardest one was forgiving because
Mm.
I held a big grudge against my father. against myself for, stupid mistakes that I made. I held a grudge pretty much to anybody. And withholding that grudge, you're never you never allow yourself to be fully engaged in whatever you're moving to.
Mm. Absolutely. And it is about self-forgiveness. It's so absolutely paramount. It really is.
So after I wrote Asshole to Awesome, I've been working on a different book. It's called Chasing Awesome, Master Your Life with Balance. Because
Mhm.
after I kind of found a balance in my life, I started chatting with other people, and then I found out a lot of people were out of balance in some way or another.
Mhm.
And especially like men nowadays, because they're everybody's so focused on the material gain, the monetary gain, that we lose the fact of being in a good relationship. We lose, our own physical health, our own mental health, what our legacy is going to look like down the road.
Mhm.
You read that, a billionaire or a millionaire on their deathbed, none of them has ever said, "Hey, I wish I worked harder or wish I had more money," right? They all wanted more time or a better relationships. And the more people I chatted with, the more I saw people were out of balance. Just to give you a couple stats, like 78% of Americans are obese or overweight, 70% in a constant state of dehydration, 60 to 70% do not get enough sleep. 131 million adults are on some kind of medication. And like that is just all out of balance. It's just all not being in balance.
Question I have is, can we actually get into balance? Is there such a thing?
That's funny because everybody argues with me when I start chatting with them about balance, right? There's no such thing as balance. Balance is a
Mhm.
joke.
Mm.
What was the other one? Um, yeah, anyway, basically, balance is a joke. But what I've found, like when you chat with these guys, like one guy weighed well over 300 pounds and he ended up in the hospital. Another gentleman was working on his third divorce. And if you only look at balance by like equal time, and that's kind of what everybody chats about, right? When they say balance, they think of it as equal time. Like I'm going to have
Yes.
equal time for my business, equal time for my wife, equal time for the kids. That doesn't work. That 100% that doesn't work. But what you can do is by knowing your and creating a great foundation for yourself. And my things have four pillars. I look at your physical health, your mental health, relationships, and legacy.
Mm.
And when you create the foundation around those and with having communication, right? You can have a great business, but if you have a spouse and your kids, you have to communicate to them like what your 5-year plan is. So now they're part of your foundation, right? They know your plan. They know what the big outcome is going to be. So instead of having resentment for you because you weren't there, now they enjoy the fact that what you're creating is something that's going to be lasting for them. And
Mm.
then you don't have to spend 2 hours in the gym, but you do have to move. you know, you can't sit just behind a desk, for 14 hours a day. You have to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's a proven thing. Only one out of every 12,000 people live okay on not 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So without that, like without getting sleep, everything just starts falling apart. And that is to me, sleep and then being physically fit. Physiology leads psychology, they say, because when you feel good about yourself, you feel good inside, your energy levels are high, you have more zest, you're more courageous, right? You're willing to go face some of those fears that you have. But when you're tired and feeling like crap, you don't want to face anything. That's when you start eating like crap. That's when you start finding finding supplements or finding the caffeine, finding drugs that you have to do, or looking for outside stimulants, like maybe your relationship isn't good, so now you need to go have somebody else tell you how good looking you are or whatever, right?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more about sleep. I think people wear it as a badge if they get less sleep. I think it's so underrated. It is so important. Absolutely there with you for that.
Yeah, sleep is vital. Like to me,
Mm.
that is become my number one thing. And what I've found out is through a coaching course that I take, it's called Heroic with Brian Johnson. It he talks a lot about the morning bookend and the evening bookend, right? Those are the only two times of the day that you have the most control over what's going on, right? When you
Mm.
first wake up in the morning, you can control when you wake up, what you're doing for a little while before all the chaos. And then before you go to bed, you can figure out how to shut down, after the chaos. Um, I kind of set up my days. I live by an algorithm in the morning. If I wake up, I drink 8 ounces of water. I take my pinch of sea salt. I do 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing. I piggyback that with 10 minutes of meditation. And as soon as I'm done with my meditation, I drink one more thing of water and then I go work out for 20 to 30 minutes. And it just rolls like that. And I know exactly what I'm doing every single morning. And then as soon as I'm done with my workout, I come say hi to one of the grandkids and we do her little bath time. And then I start working on like my book or this or that. Everything's set up
Mm.
so I know exactly what's going on. So there's no stress for my morning. I I know how it's going to go.
That's brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love that.
I'll tell you what, it is a game changer.
Yeah, definitely. Stress is a killer, a silent killer within itself. So, you know, if you can get away with that, you're on a win-win.
You are correct. That is a big win-win.
I know your book is on your website and you're giving it away for free, but if you do sell it, you give the profits away to help others. Tell me more about that, Ernest.
Yeah, that's something I just kind of started doing probably a month and a half ago. I
Mm.
We were over in Kauai and we met this little guy. His name is Paxton. He's 7 years old. He was an absolute stud. He came out and he sang in front of the whole bar area, and he's fighting leukemia. And
Mm.
he touched my heart so much that that's what I decided to do. Anything like every single month with my book, I'm going to find a different person. I think I'm going to actually just do him again for another month because unfortunately I didn't sell enough to really make that big of an impact for him. But absolutely great young man. And I just think it's something that I would like to do. It's just my little act of kindness is it's not going to be life changing for anybody. Well, maybe if somebody decides, hey, this guy's book is okay, and everybody starts buying it, so somebody might make a lot out of it. But I would just like to do that. I mean, that was the original plan. Was I was going to give half of the profits away to either a veteran like
Mhm.
charity or some kind of youth charity. That was the initial plan. But right now, it's going to be the full amount.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And thank you for doing that.
Oh,
Absolutely beautiful. So, what is one of the most important lessons you've learnt over your life so far? I'm guessing you've learnt a lot, but what would you say is the number one thing, if you
the
can
number
possibly,
one thing
the most important one?
The most important thing I've learned is you got to be grateful for where you're at. Like, be
Mm.
grateful for what you have. Be grateful for your arms, your eyes, your whatever, right? Be grateful. Like every morning, I write three things that I'm grateful for. I write one thing I'm grateful for myself, one thing I'm grateful for my spouse, and then one thing about the world. And the world can include, my sons, my grandchildren, all that. But by doing that, it just keeps you in the right mindset. It it doesn't allow you to be depressed because if you're grateful, you're not depressed. I have depression ran in my family severely. My one uncle killed himself. My
Wow.
mother always fought. like some chemical imbalances. She had to take medication. She ended up passing not too long ago. But I don't think she ever really fully understood the grateful. And I know she didn't understand forgiveness because when she
Hmm.
passed, she still held a grudge against me for a fight that we had 2 years ago. And
Hmm.
that was, I think that was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do is knowing that my mom passed not, not in my, I don't know the right way of putting it, but not loving me or not forgiving me for what happened. She cut me out of her will because she kind of likes to do some vindictive things. But at that time, when she was in the hospital, I was actually able to walk in there and say, "Hey, mom, you know, I forgive you for your part. I hope you forgive me for my part," which she didn't. She told me, I said, how did I put it? I wish it never happened. She goes, "Well, you can shit in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up first." And that was the last words my mother ever told me before she passed. So that that one, Jax, it still messes with my mind a little bit. But having that, being able to forgive, and then even just being grateful for that, she was my mom, man. She had me when she was 14 years old, and she went through a lot of crap in her life to get me to where I'm at.
That's lovely. That's beautiful, though. Yeah. I mean, well done on your part, but I'm sure somewhere along the line things will change. Yeah. So, what resources do you recommend, tools, daily steps to anyone that wants to start whatever their version is of our soul looks like to a version of awesome?
I'll tell you, it's a hard thing to look in the mirror and go, you know what, I'm not the person I want to be. I did it by myself. I mean, I did hire some coaches, I took some coaching courses, I did some things, but I would suggest is get a solid mentor, get a solid coach, somebody that can be there to, hey, I'm going to use this terminology, to put a foot in your ass when you start getting lazy about it, because it's so easy to fall back to the easy routine. It's hard to move forward. It's not always easy. And having somebody there to say, "Hey man, I know what you're doing. I know what you're going through." That is, honestly, I wish I would have done it way earlier than trying to just, do it by a video, watching a video or reading a book. I mean, I read probably 500 some odd self-help books. I've spent countless amount of money on different little video things,
Mm.
but until I was able to get a coach that actually like says, "Hey, dipshit," let's, and sometimes tough love is the right way of having it, man. You can't have somebody that just sits there and coddles you all the time. "Oh, you're great." You're not great. It's okay not to be great. It's okay not to be perfect. And the more you learn that it's okay not to be perfect, and just use every opportunity as like a chance to learn. Again, Brian Johnson uses a term that I love, and either you're winning or you're learning, and learning is winning, so you're always winning. I kind of modified that a little, but yeah, it's hire or get a coach, get a mentor. That's what I would say, 100%.
Excellent. That's fantastic. So, where can the listeners find you online, your book? What's your website, Ernest?
My website is ernestwood.com. It's super easy. You just see my name right down there, throw a .com on the back of it, and that is where you can actually set up a call. You can get the book for free, or if you'd like to pay, and have those profits go to somebody, you can go to Amazon. Just research Asshole to Awesome. It's the book, the white version. The red one is a journal. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I believe it helps you keep accountability for yourself, especially if you don't have a coach, and even if you do have one.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I know you have helped so many others to make a difference. And especially for doing the work on yourself. I'd really like to acknowledge you for that, Ernest Wood.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And
My
thank you for
pleasure.
having me on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast here. So what is your definition of courage?
My definition of courage is, it's right along the line with what the actual definition is. It's being willing to look fear or be afraid of something and still act, right? And looking yourself in the mirror sometimes is it's the most scary thing ever, right? A lot of people, I know I was scared to do it. I hated looking myself in the mirror. And when I finally got to the point where it had to be done, sometimes that's where courage happens, right? When it gets so bad that it has to be done. So yeah, just face those fears, and it's never as bad as you think it's going to be, right? What is, like they say, fear is false evidence appearing real. Just, give you a quick story. It's like driving down the freeway and you see the sirens in the back. You automatically think it's for you, and then when the cop passes by, your heart goes relieved, right? You feel, oh crap, I thought I was going to get pulled over. And that's kind of how fear is. You always think it's going to be the worst, absolute worst situation. But along the time, just pushing past that fear and overcoming that obstacle is the very best learning experience that you can have.